I'm Bharat Sivaraman, Senior Product Manager in the Azure Compute team. And I'm here today to talk to you about how Azure Migrate, the product that my engineering team builds, can help you in your migration journey into Azure. So for most enterprises today, Azure is a critical part of their digital transformation journey. It's no longer a question of why Azure, but how do I get the most out of Azure? And as they embark on that journey, there are a few questions that commonly come up. How do I think about migrating into Azure? Is there a framework or a process that I need to consider? How do I discover my infrastructure and applications? How do I evaluate the different options that are available to me? And are there tools that can help me execute my migration strategy? And how do I perform migrations for servers, databases, and applications? And to help answer questions like this, we have a three-pronged framework built around process, product, and program. On the process side of things, the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework is a comprehensive set of learning resources distilled out of best practices from successful cloud migrations that help you think about things such as how do I plan my identity strategy as I make that move into Azure? How do I think about security? Or how do I think about management in the cloud-first world? On the program side of things, the Azure Migrate program, or the Azure Migration program, is a program offered by Microsoft in conjunction with skilled partners from around the world that can help you get started in your migration journey into Azure. But we're not here to talk about that today. Here today, we're going to talk about how Azure Migrate, the product, can help you with some of these questions. So what is Azure Migrate? The way to think about Azure Migrate is that Azure Migrate is a centralized hub to help you get started on your migration journey into Azure. What does Azure Migrate offer? Azure Migrate offers curated journeys across key migration scenarios, regardless of whether you're looking to move your servers into Azure virtual machines, databases into one of the managed database offerings in Azure, such as Azure SQL, or looking to move large volumes of data into Azure. We got you covered for all of these scenarios. Add to that integrated discovery and assessment capabilities offered with Azure Migrate. You can use the powerful capabilities to discover and inventory your entire on-premises infrastructure. And in fact, you can do more than just your on-premises infrastructure, right? You can use the same tools to also discover what you're running on other public clouds or other private clouds. Augment that with powerful application discovery and application dependency capabilities. It really helps you build out that map of your IT inventory or your IT assets, and it helps you plan the migration strategy that you want to use as you consider moving these applications into Azure. Now, Microsoft offers tools for some of these most common scenarios, but we also have a rich ecosystem of ISV solutions that can help you with some of these tasks. And through an extensible design, a lot of these ISV solutions are also available for you to take advantage of from right within Azure Migrate. And finally, you get one centralized end-to-end tracking of the migration journey, regardless of the option you choose, and the same consistent experience, regardless of whether using one of the Microsoft tools or one of the ISV-offered tools. Now, for those of you who used Azure Migrate in the past few months, you're already aware of the capabilities that we offer around these key scenarios: migrating Windows and Linux servers into Azure, migrating databases to one of the managed database offerings in Azure, such as Azure SQL or Azure SQL Managed Instance, or moving data, large volumes of data, to Azure using Azure Data Box. This Ignite, we are happy to announce that we've also added curated scenarios to help you think about moving workloads, such as virtual desktops or web applications, to one of the managed offerings in Azure. So let's see all of that in action in a demo. Is that 8? Sorry about that. All right. Apologies for the technical slag. Seem to be having a bad day. So to get started with Azure Migrate, you're going to begin by starting on the Azure portal. As you head to the Azure portal, on the Azure homepage, right here at the bottom, you'll find the Azure Migration Tools link that can take you to the Azure Migrate homepage. When you launch the Azure Migrate homepage, you will find that there are curated journeys for the most common migration scenarios that we spoke about. In addition to servers, databases, and large volumes of data, we now also have curated journeys for moving virtual desktops as well as web applications into Azure. Now, depending on what you're looking to accomplish, you're going to pick one of these scenarios. So let me say I pick the Assess and Migrate Servers option. As I do that, the first thing you're going to be asked to do is to select the tools that you want to use to accomplish this task. Since this is the first time using Azure Migrate, it'll also ask me to begin by creating an Azure Migrate project. The Azure Migrate project is essentially a holding space for all of the information that we collect in the process of performing these assessments and discovery. So you give your project a name. I'm just going to call mine Contoso Demo. I'm going to, in fact, create it on a new resource group that I'm calling Contoso Demo. Give my project a name. Pick a region. That way I have control of where my data resides. And get started on picking the tools that I want to use to accomplish these tasks. Since I'm now looking to assess and migrate servers, this listing offers me a selection of tools that can help me with this task. I'm going to pick the native Azure Migrate Server Assessment tool to help me discover and assess my on-premises assets. I can also choose to pick a tool that I want to use to execute the migration, or I can choose to do this at a later point. When I do this and say Add Tools, this particular journey that I've chosen to migrate servers gets instantiated in my Azure Migrate project. I already have an alternate Azure Migrate project where I set this up, and when this happens, this is kind of how it looks. So you see the tool added to the particular journey within your project. You'll also notice here that I have some of the ISV tools. In fact, Moware is one of the tools that we recently acquired, which is also now integrated into Azure Migrate. And that way, if you want to use one of the partner tools, you'll be able to do that as well. And you get the same integrated experience across all of these. So that's essentially the Azure Migrate Hub. You'd go through the same process regardless of which journey you chose. In this case, I picked servers, but where you're doing databases or one of these applications, the journey would be exactly the same. Switching back to look at the integrated discovery and assessment capabilities within Azure. The Azure Migrate Server Assessment offers a comprehensive discovery process that lets you discover your IT applications and assets regardless of where you may be running. You may be running your own on-premises data center on VMware or Hyper-V, or maybe running on any other public cloud, say AWS or GCP. The server discovery process works exactly the same. You get started by downloading the Azure Migrate appliance from the Azure Migrate project, setting up in your environment and connecting it to your on-premises or cloud environment. The appliance is then able to start discovering the inventory of the servers in your environment and also start collecting performance data that could be used to compute server assessments at a later point of time. You'll be able to augment this discovery with the rich dependency analysis capability that we have, and you'll see further later on in the demo how I can use that to really think about my migration strategy. Here again, for those of you who already use Azure Migrate, you already probably were aware of the capabilities that we offer to assess data centers that may be running on VMware and Hyper-V. What we've also now done is we've added support for scenarios such as physical servers, and the same scenario would also extend to applications that you may be running on other public clouds. Not just that, we've also offered other discovery capabilities such as CMDB import. So for example, if you didn't want to set up that appliance and go through that process, but had a CMDB that already inventoried all of your servers, you could just export that out and use the import process to compute a quick assessment. And the one new capability that I'm really excited to talk about is the new agentless dependency capability that we've added. Dependency mapping is a capability that we've always had to help you discover inter-process communication between servers, but we made that setup a whole lot more easier by actually making this now agentless. And we'll see how that can help you as well in the demo. So let me jump back to my demo and show you how the assessment process would work. So to get started with my assessment, the first thing I'm going to do is on the server assessment tile, I'm going to say discover. And the discovery process will help me download that Azure Migrate appliance to suit my environment. So I may be running on VMware, I may be running on Hyper-V, or I may have applications running on physical servers. And depending on that scenario, I want to pick the Azure Migrate appliance to use. The guided journey then tells me how I can download that appliance and instantiate it in my on-premises environment, connect it back up to the project to complete that process of discovery. We also spoke about the import-based option if you didn't want to set up their appliance, and you can do that from right here. So if I just toggle over to import using CSV, I can download a CSV template in which format you can actually provide some of this information, and that way you can actually compute an assessment even without setting up an appliance. So we've really expanded the options for discovery that we previously had, and now have a comprehensive set across various platforms and various clouds. In my case, I've already performed a discovery of my VMware environment. And once I've done that, you start this number getting populated. You can see I've discovered about 56,000 machines across various environments. And I can actually discover up to 35,000 virtual machines from a single vCenter environment. So we've also bumped up the scale to match actually data center scale. So if you had to perform an assessment of an entire data center, you'll be able to do all of that with just one single Azure Migrate project. I can go look at the inventory of discovered servers. And as I do this, I can also start looking at some of the other information that I've discovered, such as what applications are these servers running, or what are the interdependencies between these servers. Now, application discovery and dependency mapping discovery are complementary features that are optional for you to use, but really powerful capabilities that can help you help inform the strategy that you want to use for migration. So you can see here I've turned on these capabilities for most of the servers that I've discovered, and I can use the applications column to look at what applications are installed on the machines that I've discovered. So as I look for the applications that comprise the servers that comprise my payroll application, as you can see here, as I navigate to one of these servers, I can click the applications button, and this will give me an inventory of what applications and what roles are enabled on these particular servers. So not just infrastructure discovery, I have now augmented that with rich capability to tell you what exactly is running on each of these machines. Further, if I wanted to look at dependencies to understand which servers are dependent on which other services, I could do that as well using the View Dependencies option here. So let me go ahead and click that. And you'll notice here that I have a dependency map that can show you what other clients or what other services are actually interacting with these servers. So this really helps me form a picture of how my data center is organized, which group of servers are dependent on which other servers, and what services are each of these servers offering. And that can help you decide on how you want to plan those migration strategies. And the really cool thing about all of this is all of the things that I showed you just now is completely agentless, which means you're not installing any software on any of these virtual machines. All you need is to download the Azure Migrate appliance, deploy it in your on-premises environment, set it up in about 15 minutes, and you're ready to go. Once I've done that discovery, depending on what strategy I choose, I may want to assess my applications for that migration strategy. If I choose to migrate to virtual machines in Azure, I can click this Assess button to start performing a server assessment. The first thing I want to do in a server assessment is to create a group of servers that I want to move together and start assessing them. In my case, I've already pre-created a few groups of servers. So I'm going to pick an existing application group that I have, the Contoso payroll group. As you can see, this payroll application is comprised of a few servers. And I can now start creating a server assessment for these servers. As I perform a server assessment, there are a few things that I want to think about. A few inputs that I can offer to the assessment, such as which region am I migrating to? What are the Azure offers that are available to me? And also things such as if I have a policy in place that says I don't want to run my applications on a certain tier. So let's say I only want to go to premium disks and not standard disks. I can provide all of those inputs from right here in the assessment. And then compute an assessment for these group of servers. The assessment is essentially going to give me 3 key pieces of information when it comes to migrating servers over as virtual machines. It's going to tell me suitability analysis, essentially how ready are these servers to be moved into Azure as is, or in certain cases, do I need to make a few changes before I can move them to Azure virtual machines. It's also going to give me an estimate of what is the cost of running these machines in Azure. So what are my operational costs going to be once I migrate these applications into Azure. So let's look at that in an assessment. I already have an assessment that I pre-computed for this particular group. So let me go to that. What I've done in this particular assessment is I've chosen to do what we call a performance-based assessment. When you perform an assessment, there are two options. One is what we call a configuration-based assessment, wherein we're looking to map these machines to the closest queue that's available in Azure in terms of configuration. But oftentimes, what does tend to happen also is servers are routinely oversized when it's deployed on-prem because capacity is not that easy to come by. So one powerful capability that we have is what we call the performance-based assessment, where we're not just looking at the configuration of the servers, but we're also looking at what resource utilization, what the resource utilization on the servers are like. So how much CPU is it using, how much IOPS are they consuming on storage, what is the RAM utilization, etc. And we're able to tell you if they slack that, hey, you know what, as you bring these workloads into Azure, you may not need all of that capacity, so this is probably the size that you want to use. And based on that, we're able to give you right-sizing recommendations to say, what should be the size of these particular machines when you bring them into Azure. So let me jump to the Azure readiness section of the assessment and show you what the assessment for this group of servers looks like. In the readiness section, you look that most servers are ready to go just as is, but there are a couple of servers that we're warning and indicating to you are only conditionally ready to go to Azure. When you hover over this, you'll find out that this is because these are running operating systems that may not necessarily be endorsed in Azure just yet. So as you start moving them into Azure, you want to start thinking about, do you want to retain that operating system or move to a different operating system? The other thing that you'll also find here is the sizing recommendation that we made based on the inputs that you provided at the time you computed the assessment. And all of this goes back into the cost section, telling you what is going to be the cost of operating this infrastructure in Azure if you choose to take these recommendations. So that's really the server assessment capability. So discovery capability to help you discover and map your IT assets. And further, based on a chosen strategy, such as server migration, the server assessment capability will help you plan out how you execute that strategy. Similar tools are also available for the other scenarios that you may choose. So you can actually assess databases for migration to Azure SQL or Azure SQL Managed Instance, and similarly for web apps and virtual desktops. And they all work exactly the same, or at least in the same fashion in terms of how you acquire those tools. Switching back, the last topic that I want to cover is, once I'm done with my assessments, how do I actually migrate these applications into Azure? And here again, Azure Migrate can help you. Now, depending on the strategy you choose, you have a few different options in terms of how you think about migration. If you're looking to use the Azure VMware solutions, you can take applications and move them over to virtual machines in AVS using the VMware tools options that are available to migrate. If you're looking to move your application all in on Azure virtual machines, the Azure Migrate server migration tool can help you do that. And we'll see that in a little bit in a demo. But there are also other options that you can use, such as moving your databases to one of the managed service offerings while retaining your app tiers and web tiers on virtual machines, or potentially going all PaaS by moving your web-based applications, the web tier to Azure App Services, and the database tier to one of the managed SQL offerings. And for each of these options, you have tools available from right within Azure Migrate to help you. I'm going to show you a demo of the second option, the server migration option. And here again, with the server migration capability, we've always had the ability to migrate servers on VMware, virtual machines running on VMware, Hyper-V, physical, or other public clouds such as AWS and GCP. The test migration capability helps you test out your migration ahead of time to a sandbox environment without impacting your production and build confidence around the migration procedure. And we also have, and the migration capability also lets you perform a zero data loss migration with minimal downtime. All of this is stuff that you already knew. And we have options for various environments. One of the solutions that we added recently was the ability to perform migrations of VMware virtual machines without having to install any agents on the virtual machines themselves. And I'm happy to also tell you that this capability is also now generally available as of this Ignite. So let's see a last demo of how that would work. Going back to my Azure Migrate project, I've already added the server migration tool that can help me migrate my servers. And since in this case, I've already discovered my VMware inventory, I don't need to perform that discovery again. Migration is a simple 3-step process. You replicate the servers that you want to move to Azure virtual machines, you test, and then you eventually migrate them. So let me get started with the replication by clicking the replicate button. And as I do this, I want to pick the source that I'm bringing my servers over from. I've already deployed that Azure Migrate appliance on-prem, so let me pick that appliance. Now, since I've already performed an assessment or a server assessment, I also have the option of carrying that recommendation into the migration process without having to manually translate those recommendations. So I'm actually going to pick an assessment that I just computed and tell my server migration tool to bring in those recommendations in the process of migration. So let me pick my application group and the assessment that I want to use. Pick the servers that I want to start replicating. Specify where I want to move these servers in Azure. So the target resource group and my target network that the virtual machine should connect to. And as I head over to the compute section, you'll notice that these columns are already populated with the information that was computed or recommended from the assessment. Once I've done this, the last thing to do is to hit the replicate button, and that will start the process of replicating these machines to your Azure subscription. Once the initial replication completes, you're now ready to start performing test migrations. So let me go back to the servers page. I can click the replicating servers line here on the server migration tool to monitor my replication. I already have a few servers that are replicating. And now that I'm ready to test, I can perform that from right here. Select the server that I want to test my migration on and click the test migration option. I can pick a sandbox environment in which to perform this test. And while this test goes on, there's no disruption to your production environment. So replication is continuing to operate in the background, and the application is continuing to work as is on-prem. You perform the test to a sandbox environment in Azure, build confidence around the migration process, and you can perform this test as many times as you want before you're ready to cut over. I hit test migration, and this virtual machine is going to show up in your Azure subscription for you to start testing out the application. When I'm eventually ready to perform a migration, I select the migrate option, pick the servers that I'm migrating, perform one final sync by shutting down the virtual machines, and hit the migrate button to accomplish the migration. So that was server migration for you. Oops. So while I did cover a lot of things, I do want to quickly recap the new stuff that we've spoken about today. So like I spoke about, Azure Migrate, centralized hub to get you started on your migration journey, regardless of scenarios. We've already had scenarios for servers, databases, and data. We've now augmented that for application-focused capabilities such as migration of virtual desktops, migration of web apps, as well as added more feature-based choice with new tools such as Moveware that we recently acquired. Coming to infrastructure discovery and assessments in the native Azure Migrate tool, we've added support for physical servers in addition to VMware and Hyper-V that we already supported. You can use the same option to also now discover applications that you're running on other public clouds. We've also added a CMDB-based import option to help you simplify that process of discovery and get a basic assessment without having to install any appliance. And finally, added the powerful dependency mapping capability that always existed, but we made it a whole lot more simpler for you to get onboarded with by making this completely agentless. And lastly, on the server migration piece, the agentless VMware migration capability is also now generally available for you to start using. So that was Azure Migrate for you. And there are a few other sessions that we're also doing. There's a panel discussion happening later today. So if you have questions, you can head over to that panel discussion that's happening at, I think I don't have it here, but oh yeah, this one here. A breakout session 2142 that's happening. So you'll have an expert panel of product leaders from various groups that can help answer some of the questions, not just around Azure Migrate and server migration, but also other things like database migration or app service migration. And if you want to take a picture of some of the key resources that can help you get started, that's on the screen. Thank you.